G'day, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to find out if the Morgan starter kit can actually make decent beer, or is it just going to be another fermenter that ends up collecting dust out here in the doghouse? Look, the harsh reality is the last thing that I need in my life is another fermenter or starter kit, but here we are. Look, I spotted the Morgan's premium home brew starter kit while I was away. It was 99 bucks at a brew shop in Mackay, and I thought, all right, let's see if this thing's actually worth your hard-earned cash. For starters, it's 20 bucks cheaper than the Coopers. So in this video, we're going to unbox it, set it up, and brew it exactly as the instructions say. No cheats, no hacks, no upgrades. Then in part two, we'll check out the fermentation, we'll bottle it and taste it so you'll know exactly what you're getting in for if you buy this kit. Now, I was drawn to the Morgan's kit because they're local. Like all good things, they're made right here in Australia. Mind you, I was made here too, and that's no guarantee of quality. I'm pretty sure my mum's tried to lodge a product recall on me at least a dozen times over the years. But jokes aside, this kit's been helping Aussies get into brewing for decades. So today we're going to put it through its paces. And just to be clear, I paid full price for this, so I'm not sponsored, and there's definitely no freebies here in this video. So if it's great, I'll tell you. And if it doesn't stack up, I'll tell you to look somewhere else. All right, that's enough jibber jabber from me. Let's dive down and get this thing unboxed. I'll catch us in a sec. All right, a quick look at the box. It's a pretty nicely printed box. It's not Apple packaging or anything. There's a QR code down the bottom of the box there. I think that leads you to your instructions. But we'll have a look. On this side, nothing much to speak of. There you go. They're just showing you some of the beers that they've got available, I suppose. Up top, it's got a list of your contents. Have a bit of a look at the top of the box. So you can see we're getting our fermenter, what appears to be a hydrometer, I'd say, a bottling wand, a thermometer, airlock, a tap, carb drops, your brew enhancer, sanitiser, which is a good thing, recipes and instructions, 30 pet bottles, and a beer tin, and not forgetting a mixing spoon. So let's get into it and have a look and see what the gear looks like. All right, hopefully you can see that all right there. Let's just zap this open. Let's just go easy with the knife, I suppose. And zip this thing open. Righto. Well, there's our spoon. Plucky bottles, and it all seems to be pretty well packed inside the fermenter. So I'd say that's where everything is. Oh, yep. All right. Let's get that up and out. All right, yeah, just a bunch of bottles in the box itself. All right, let's see if we can crack this fermenter open and see what we get. All right, so there's obviously our lids. Put them over there. All right, some more bottles stacked in the fermenter. I don't know whether you can see how they've stacked this, but it's pretty good. They've got all the bottles on the outside and all of the big stuff on the inside, so it's not going to scratch the fermenter up in transit. So that's pretty good. Looks to be a bag of body blend there. What else we got? Your sanitiser, your tap, your airlock, and of course the instructions. We'll get onto them in a minute. There's our bottling wand. And lastly, a can of the Blue Mountain Lager. Right, the rest is just all bottles. So that now we've got it all unpacked, we can have a closer look. You've got your first tin of concentrate, which is good. That's the Blue Mountain Lager. That's not a bad drop at all. Your 1 kilo of body blend. Another good thing that they've included is a nice glass hydrometer. They haven't cheaped out at all. Now, in here, let's have a look at this bag. Get your sanitiser, carbonation drops, a vintage style airlock, pretty good, a tap, a spring. Now I think that's for your bottling one, but we'll have a look. Whoop. There's your thermometer. It's just a stick-on thermometer, as well as a set of instructions. All right, we'll have a look at them in a minute. All right, so the kit itself, my initial thoughts after we've unboxed it. PET bottles, look, they're not my favourite, but you know what? They get the job done, and you don't need an additional bench capper to put the caps on. So I guess for a starter kit, that's a win. The fermenter itself, look, it's a solid fermenter, but the moulded numbers on the side of the fermenter, they're pretty hard to read just from initial first looks. The included tap is not great. I don't like these taps. They're a pain to pull apart and clean. And in particular, these taps have a habit of backing themselves off when they get sticky, and you're trying to turn them on and off when you go to bottle. The airlock itself, it's a single piece airlock. They're not too bad. And look, it comes with a grommet. And this style of fermenter is my preferred style of fermenter because you can control that intake of oxygen if you're going to cold crash the actual beer itself for that additional polish and clarity. Glass hydrometer, that's a win. Where the kit is falling down though, when we're on the hydrometer, is in the sample test tube. Now what I think they want you to do is to use the storage tube that the hydrometer comes in. And if that's the case, this thing is not moulded properly, and it's got a round bottom on it. What's going to happen is when you fill this up full of your sample of your wort and put it down on the bench, it's going to do one or two things. It's going to fall over, and when it does that, it's going to do the other thing, which is allow you to be part of the Home Brewers Club and break your first glass hydrometer. So that's a bit of a miss in my opinion. You're far better off going and spending $2 or $3 extra bucks at a home brew shop and actually buying yourself a moulded plastic sample tube. The spoon's pretty good quality. Where this kit wins, I think, is with the sanitiser. I mean, that's got a peroxide-based sanitiser, so that was nice to see them include that. The instructions themselves, I mean, they're pretty basic. What could have made these instructions a little bit better was to actually have pictures to show people. And I guess if you're watching this video, you know, a picture's going to tell 1,000 words. If you follow along, I'll follow along with the instructions to the T. And of course, you've got your first beer, and we'll see how that goes. But overall, it's not too bad. I just wish that these companies that make starter kits don't cheap out, especially for things that you'll need, like a sample tube. Now, during this video, I'm assuming absolutely nothing. I'm going to take it that this is your first kit So I'm going to do the unthinkable right now and read the instructions. I know they've probably got as many looks as the terms and conditions pages on Pornhub, but I'm going to check them out anyway. While I do that, you guys go and grab a beer. Cue the slow-mo and the bad 80s porn music.
Oh yeah.
Sorry to troll you guys like that, but my mum watches every one of these videos and I can almost feel my phone ringing now. Let's crack on and get this thing assembled and cleaned in accordance with the instructions. Right, let's get our fermenter set up, and I'm going to take it that you've never had to deal with getting bungs out and stuff before. All you're going to do is you're going to use a spanner. Don't pinch one of your missus's butter knives or anything like that, she'll kill you. What you do is you come in, put the spanner in, and just give it a good twist out. So these taps, if you've not seen these types of taps before, they twist the off position. There's a hard shoulder, and in the off position, there's like a little ramp. I'll see if I can get it sharp on camera. What you're going to do to take the tap apart is you're going to twist it to the off position and just keep twisting it, and it'll pop apart, and that's how you're going to clean it later on. To put it back together, you just push it all the way together. That's on, that's off. Now, before we run the tap in, it's important that we check that this seal is seated properly, and we can give it a bit of lube. Now, I've got some food grade lubricant here. It's not included in the kit, but you don't have this. Back in the day, we used to just use olive oil, and you just give that a bit of a smear of that food grade grease, and it'll just keep that seal lubed. And then what we're going to do is fit our sediment reducer, and again, they just plug in and it goes, so if the tap's facing down, that slot's facing straight up and down. Now, onto the lid of the fermenter itself. We'll open it up and you'll see there's a rubber seal there. We're going to pop that out, and I'll do that. I'll just grab a spoon and come in underneath that seal, and we're just going to pop that out and drop that into the fermenter to start with, because that needs to be sanitised. So with your airlock grommet, if you just twist it from the underside and get it to there, and then just work it around. It's harder if you go from the top because this side's countersunk. So we're going to put our thermometer on, and we want to try and get it nice and straight. I'm going to come this side and just line it up with those numbers to get it nice and straight so it doesn't do my head in. And we'll just push that on. Done. We're now ready to get this cleaned. Right, before we do that, we'll put our bottling wand together. We're just going to twist the end off that. Take our spring out so that it doesn't get lost. Push your spring into your bottling wand, little end down, so that way in, and then just push that on, and that's spring loaded now. So we're all assembled. Let's go and give this a clean. The instructions don't say that there's a requirement to clean anything, but you know what, we're going to anyway. So into this, I've just got some unscented nappy sand. Just going to put 2 scoops of that and a couple of litres of water. I've just got some hot water straight out of the tap with a brand new Chuck's cloth, and you only want a couple of litres. And what we're going to do is just come in and make sure that we wash all of the surfaces down, including the lid. and I'll catch you when I've done that. Now that everything's had a good wash, and I've just ran some cleaner through the tap, we're going to give it a rinse. Again, just come in with a couple of litres of clean hot water, whack your lid on. Don't worry about the seal at the moment. Just going to give that a rinse, put your finger over the grommet and just get everything a good shake. Now, the last process we need to do after we've cleaned and we've rinsed is we're going to sanitise. They're complete different steps in brewing. So we're going to take our sanitiser, and I've got a measuring cup, and we're going to measure out 30 mils. There's 30 mils there. And we're going to drop that into our 1 litre of clean water and drop that straight into your fermenter. Done. Lid back on. Just move this stuff out of the way so we don't end up with a disaster again. Lid back on. Thumb over the top of that grommet, and we're just going to shake it around. Make sure we cover everything in the sanitiser. Reach in, grab hold of our lid O-ring, and after that's been exposed to the sanitiser, that's when we're going to refit that O-ring back into the lid. To do that, just start on one side and just work it around. So, here's something that's not in the instructions. Most tap water here in Australia has chlorine or chloramine in it, and that can leave your beer tasting like Band-Aids or a burnt plastic. Look, it's a really easy fix. You run it through carbon filters, and even cheap supermarket ones work fine. We'll also be using cold filtered water from bottles that I've saved out here in the fridge to bring the brew down to pitching temperature. Seriously guys, don't skip this step or the cleaning or sanitation. It can make or break your beer right before we even start or even open the can. Let's get into it. Righto, so I'm over the bench now. So stuff that's not included in the kit you're probably going to need is a clean tea towel for handling this can when it gets hot, a pair of scissors for opening up the packaging, don't use your teeth, a can opener, and of course, just a simple jug. All right, and into that jug, first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our 1 litre of sanitiser that we drained out of the fermenter. And we'll just whack that in there. Move that over to one side, and into that jug, we're going to put our can opener and our scissors, as well as our spoon. So from now on, anything that touches our fermenter or our beer needs to be exposed to the sanitiser. All right, we're going to boil the kettle, and I'll just flick that on and get some hot water. First thing we're going to do though is we're going to take the lid off the can of concentrate, grab our yeast out, and we'll just move that to one side. And I'll take the actual label off this tin. Right, so we'll just get rid of that label. And we'll put our tin in our bowl. Now, if you've got a sink, by all means use that. I'm just not allowed anywhere near the house. Now, with our label, we're going to push our label to one side and hang on to it because we're going to write our original gravity on it. Once this kettle's finished boiling, it's going straight into our bowl with our can of concentrate in it. Now, I'll just move some stuff around here on the bench so you guys can get a better look. I'll just bring the fermenter forward here. You can go over the back there for a sec. Right, our first kettle's just finished boiling, so we're going to stick our first kettle with 1 litre into the fermenter. Now, before I did that, I made sure that the tap was off, and then I checked that the tap was off. All right, so the next thing we'll do is we'll get another kettle on, and while that one's coming up to the boil, we're going to grab hold of our body blend, give it a wipe and some sanitiser. Grab our sanitised pair of scissors and just open that body blend up. And dump all that body blend straight into the fermenter. And then with our sanitised spoon, we're going to come in and we're going to give that a good mix. We'll leave the spoon in, it doesn't matter. Put our lid straight back on the fermenter. All right, we'll move this out of the way and we'll deal with this can that should have softened up by now. Now, with your can of concentrate, it's going to be hot, right? So, pop him out onto the bench. Then with our sanitised can opener, we can just pull them out, come over and dunk our can into that sanitiser. All right, let's get this can open. Now, with your tea towel, you're going to grab this can of malt and we're going to empty it straight into the fermenter. That should just pour it straight into that fermenter. I'm going to come in and grab our can. I'll just grab that spoon. Give our can a bit of a rinse. We're going to dump our hot water with the rest of that malt in the fermenter. Close enough for government work. Righto. From there, it's a matter of stirring that so it's mixed well. And then we're going to top the fermenter up to the 23 litre mark with cold water straight out of the fridge. Righto, that's us there at 23 litres. We're just going to put the lid on loosely and take a temperature reading and a gravity reading. Now, hopefully you can see this. We're sitting at right at 20 degrees. So we've hit our target temperature. Now we're just going to take a gravity sample. And I relented and went to the brew shop, spent an extra $3.50, and I have a proper sample tube for this. So we just come under and just open our tap. You really only need to fill it, 2/3 full, and we'll take a gravity reading. All right, so in our hydrometer goes, and we just give him a spin. And we want to read from the bottom of the meniscus. So I'll see if I can zoom you in. You're going to end up with some parallax error there, but we'll call that, 1.050 or 1050. So on our sheet, we're going to record our original gravity as 1.050. Just like that. All right, now comes the fun part. We're going to pitch some yeast. So to do that, we're going to take our yeast sachet, just dunk it in the sanitiser, shake it off, come in with our sanitized pair of scissors, snip the top off, and we're just going to sprinkle it in on top of our wort. From there, we're going to shut our fermenter and fit our airlock. All right, so most new brewers struggle with the fact that their airlock's not bubbling, and it's because their fermenter's not sealed properly. So to test that, what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze on the side of the fermenter, and you'll see the airlock change levels. Now, if it stays like that until I release it, that means your fermenter's got a good seal on it. So squeezing and letting go. Righto, we're just going to put that into the fermentation chamber and I'll come up and have a talk to you. So up here in North Queensland, if I had just left that fermenter sitting on the bench, we'd end up with a hot, fruity, estery bomb. So to give the kit a fair chance, I'm going to run it in a temperature controlled fridge with just a basic temperature controller. Look, you don't need that on day one, but honestly, a second-hand fridge and an ink bird is probably one of the better upgrades you can make, especially as a new brewer. So I guess first impressions. For under $100, I think the Morgan's kit gives you a decent fermenter and some pretty usable gear. And it even throws in a bottle of sanitiser, which already is, a step up from the Cooper's kit. But where it stumbles is in on the small details. No proper sample cylinder, one of those hopeless, flimsy twist taps, and instructions that read like a textbook instead of showing you what to do. That's the kind of stuff that can trip a brand new brewer up. And then they go online and they probably get all the wrong advice. Overall though, it'll make beer. If you look after your cleaning, your water and your temperature, I think you can get something pretty drinkable out of it. How drinkable, we'll find out in part 2 of this video. So right now, Cooper's versus Morgan's, look, I'd call it 1-1. Morgan's wins on the sanitiser, Cooper's on the sample gear, even if it's just poorly executed. At least they realise you need to put the sample into a cylinder to read it properly. Look, part 2, we'll settle the score when we taste it side by side with the Coopers. I've still got a couple of bottles left. Look, if this video's helped you out, hit the like button. It tells the YouTube algorithm that this is actually worth a watch. Subscribe if you haven't already and ring the little bell icon. That way you won't miss out when a next video drops. If you've subscribed already, cheers for the support. Yay! You're an absolute legend. Look, I'll catch you on part 2 because life's too short to drink dodgy beers. Till then, cheers.
Right.